Hello, MotoAmerica fans, and welcome to this latest episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I am Bice, as you can probably tell, and I've got Carruthers with me. I am in Central Ohio, and Paul Carruthers is in Southern California. It's raining pretty hard here. I know you guys hate to hear about the weather, but we're going to talk about it a little bit just because of the race weekend we came off of. Paul, that was incredible up at Ridge. I think everybody that was there should get a T-shirt that says "I survived triple-digit temperatures during a race weekend." What do you think?
Yeah, it was pretty difficult for everybody. It just made the conditions hard for. I feel bad for the riders, but I also feel really bad for the crew because those guys are hammering pretty hard, and it was really, really hot, and I could see that it's that their job's difficult anyway, but it's really made difficult in temperatures like that. But man, I don't think I've been to a race that's been that hot. And actually, when we asked Loris Baz, who's raced all over the world, including places like Malaysia, where it's known for its heat when they go there to test MotoGP and also to race. And he thought this was the hottest he'd raced in. So that's pretty much saying something, that a guy like that's raced that many times had never raced in anything like that. But as they say, at least it was a dry heat.
Yeah, dry heat. And the funny thing is, I mean, everybody that doesn't live in that area is getting a lot of rain and being fairly cool. And, I think I saw where their normal temperatures are like 72 degrees. So we would have been in room temperature weather, except for that bizarre heat wave that went through there. But it was strange for everybody in that whole area. I know they were saying, all the big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's or whatever were all out of air conditioners. So it caught everybody by surprise, or at least even if they were prepared, there wasn't a whole lot you could do. But it is weird. I know each day, it started out, it was pretty warm in the morning, and then it got up a little hotter. And I think it's like for around here, when it gets to a certain cold temperature, it's like, it's just really hot. I don't know if you go, oh man, yeah, I can definitely tell it's 108 or whatever. When it got up over 100, it was just too hot in general. Didn't you think that was kind of the case?
Yeah, and it's funny. It got, it kept getting hotter as the day went on. Like here, our hottest part of the day would be, 1 o'clock, noon, or 1:30 or something. And their hottest part of the day was like 4, But then you also have to remember that it stays light there late, so the temperature just continues to build. But yeah, it was a hot one for sure. But it's like, I think we had a pretty good weekend, all things considered, and the racing was good. Jake Gagne did it to him again, and I'm starting to wonder if he will lose a race at all this year. I really am. He just seems to have another gear that he can kick it into when he needs to. At least that race, when I did my press releases on Sunday night and Saturday night, the margins of victory were at least 4 and 5 seconds and not 14 seconds. So I mean, maybe there's a little bit of hope in that, but I just still think that, like, if someone pressures him, he might even have even more,
Yeah. It's funny. We get some comments from the fans, and I want to address that for a minute. Some of the fans talk about, quote, the racing is boring or whatever. And of course we can't control that, but I mean, there's always something going on back in the pack. If with Jake, it's the same way with Cameron Beaubier last year. If he's cleared off at the front, you almost kind of forget about him. I hate to say that, or forget about Jake, but there was a lot of passing and stuff going on further back. So if somebody just looks at the margin of victory and says the race was boring, they're not really paying attention to the rest of the field, I think. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, there always seems to be somebody that really steps up. It's obviously been Cameron for a while, and it was Tony, and now it's Jake. And I think, that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, it's like you can't always have those classic battles at the front of the field, but you're correct in saying saying that those battles do take place, just not for the lead right now. I think there's going to be a battle at some point for the lead. I'm not saying that Jake's going to lose, but I think he will start to get a little bit more pressure. I do too. I think that Josh Herrin obviously stepped it up quite a bit, and he seems to be more confident and comfortable. And when he's confident and comfortable, I mean, he's such an unknown because, you know, he can at any given point, he could suddenly step way up and win a race, or he's perfectly capable of dropping back to fifth. So he's just kind of, it's kind of an unknown with him. I think maybe they can get the Ducati sorted out at Laguna Seca. I think that bike's just really a handful to ride. I think it's got a really narrow window on the setup. And I know Loris and those guys are working really hard to find that little bit that just makes it so it's comfortable for him to ride, and he can also go fast. And maybe that could be at Laguna Seca. At least he's got some time there, just not on that bike. But anyway, we'll have to see. But, you know, all the other classes the racing has been great. And it's funny because you just kind of expect the races to be good. And it hasn't always been that way, you know, but every class has quality racing in it. And okay, so the Superbike's 4 or 5 seconds. That's not a country mile, you know?
Right. Exactly. So yeah, we're heading to Laguna Seca next. And, you know, that brings up the guest that we have on today. We haven't seen this young man since Laguna Seca last year, but prior to that, we used to see him all the time, and we used to see him a lot in our press conferences. In fact, we used to remark how polite he was. He would always address, you know, Paul, when he would come in there and talk to him about either his win or his Cory, incredibly enough, only still 19 years old. I mean, it seems like he'd be in his mid-20s by now, but Cory, you know, Cory's been racing for a while. He started out at a younger age. He's raced in the KTM RC Cup with us. In 2017, he had 4 wins and 9 podiums, and he was 5th overall in the KTM RC Cup World Final that he raced in that year. He got to go there by virtue of his finishes. He raced in Junior Cup with us when we switched from the KTM RC Cup, and he finished second in that championship with a win and 8 podiums. And he's a graduate of the VR46 Riders Academy that Valentino Rossi has. He was chosen as one of a handful of Yamaha R3 riders and, you know, certain Yamaha riders in this country too, to be involved in that really great experience and get to go over and, you know, do some dirt track, flat track riding and road racing and things like that with his academy. He's raced a little bit with us in Supersport, but what's pretty notable about Cory last year is he showed up at Laguna Seca, which is not, you know, it's not real far. I don't know. It may be a track that Cory would consider one of his home tracks, but I have to say, and I'll say this to Cory, well, when we bring him on, when we bring him on, but he qualified 7th for that race, which is good. But the guy got on the podium in the first race, and he was racing against, you know, Brandon Posh and obviously Sean Dillon Kelly and Richie Escalante and Benjamin Smith and the rest of them. So he got a 3rd place in the first race, and he got a 5th in the second race, qualifying 7th. So he got a hell of a start in both races and hadn't been racing with us. And, you know, then he kind of went back and did continued AFM last year and has been doing it this year. But he got in touch with us and he has an announcement to make. But so let's bring him in. And Cory, thanks for joining Paul and I. And let's talk about your announcement. What do you got coming up here for us?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, my announcement is I'm going to be showing up again at Laguna this year. We want to come back in and make our presence known again. We had a great showing, and we've been building on our program since then. And my goal for Laguna is to come in, start off where we finished last year, and hopefully make something happen for the rest of the season.
Oh, so you might continue, beyond last year. We were hoping you were going to continue beyond Laguna Seca, but that's something you may try to do this year. Then that's great news to hear, Cory. What will you be on, a Kawasaki this year?
Yeah, we're racing the same exact bike as last year, same program. We've added a couple things to our program with a little bit of funding over the winter. I've been working at Costco, and I want to say 90% of my income from Costco goes straight into my racing program. So we've added a couple cool things. We got some help, and Jesse's just been going to work on that thing. And yeah, we're ready to come back, and we want to put on a show.
Now, Cory, I watch your progress throughout the season on your social media and stuff, and I see you've been doing a lot of AFM racing, and you're actually battling. It seems like every weekend with a Beaubier, but it's not the Cameron variety. It's actually Ezra. So it looks like you guys are having a good time. I know you're friends, and now you're doing battle on the track. You know, it seems like it every time you guys go there.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. My whole life, Ezra and I have just been going to war, and very few times I've come out on top, and it's just an all-out battle between us, because this is more than just racing. This is our whole life. This is bragging rights when we go home and call each other every night on the phone, talking, oh, dude, I smoked you this weekend. Oh, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, week in, week out, just full pin. We want to beat each other. But yeah, it's cool to see Ezra back in the paddock. He's been out of it for a couple years. He jumped up on the 1000. So me racing on the 600 versus him on a 1000 is pretty difficult, but I'm trying my absolute best, and I'm bound and determined to beat him.
Yeah, and I'm sure it makes you go faster.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we've been training for, because I haven't raced a whole lot of 600s out here. Rocco Landers showed up to a Button Willow race, and we had a pretty good battle. He was riding really, really good, but we haven't been able to race at MotoAmerica, where you have guys pack and you're just all out battle. So I'm really curious to see where I'm going to stack up. And yeah, but my all out pace has been improving quite a bit over this season, and I'm really excited to see where we stand at Laguna.
Cory, do you I know in the past you've actually had Cameron's dad, Jeff Beaubier, working with you. So, well, before I say that, let me just give a shout out to the Ventura family, because they're some of my favorite people, just super nice people. Your dad, Chris, and your mom, Julie, and your sister, Emily, who has actually helped us out a lot within the paddock. I mean, she's worked in our hospitality as a volunteer with Ron Heben, preparing meals and stuff in the past. So we haven't seen her in a while yet either. So I do want to say your entire family is, we miss all of you guys, and I'm sure it sounds like all of them will be there. But will Jeff be working with you as well at Laguna?
Yeah, Jeff will be there. Ezra's original plan was to come race as well at Laguna. And Jeff was going to kind of come in between both of our pits. He's going to help guide them, but he wanted to come and be a part of our program, make sure everything is ready to go and that we don't have any issues, and just solely be able to focus on our program moving forward. Sadly, Ezra, I believe, had a motor blow up at Thunder Hill this last weekend, so he will not be gridding up at Laguna. But on my side of things, that means Jeff is fully dedicated to our program.
This is breaking news, Cory, because I actually get the entry lists and kind of go through them. So a lot of times I get an early notice of who's going to be racing, and I did see Ezra on the list. So I guess we're going to have to scratch him. Unfortunately, it would have been great to see him, but so you'll be there on the Kawasaki. I want to ask you something about that. Paul and I have talked about this a little bit. Last year everybody talked about that 636 thing. And nobody's talking about it at all this year. I mean, obviously Sean Dillon Kelly's doing really, really well. Richie won the championship last year, but it wasn't easy. And it's kind of gone away a little bit as a controversy. Do you, in AFM, or have you had to deal with that kind of issue about the extra displacement on that bike? And what do you think about it this year? Is it a non-factor now?
I don't really think it was ever really a factor to begin with. I mean, when you saw Richie riding last year, Richie was riding that thing absolutely amazing. And I think you have to really appreciate Richie and look at what he's doing on the motorcycle. Because, yeah, the ZX6 is really fast, and it does have pretty good torque. I do think if you ride the ZX6 properly, it can be an advantage. But at the same time, you have to be able to ride it properly and be able to hit your marks. The bike is insanely hard to be able to hit your marks. When you make a little mistake on the brakes and you don't hit your turn-in point, or you don't get a braking mark, or you just get a little sideways, these little mistakes go from being 2 feet off to being like 6 feet off on the ZX6. And that's where we saw Richie at, let's say, Road America race 1 last year, is when he came up into turn 6 and got had a little moment, and he blew off the racetrack. On an R6, he would have ran wide, I want to say probably 6 feet, and continued racing. But the ZX6, the frame is just so it's not rigid at all. It's so I'm looking for the right word, but it moves around a lot, and the front end is not as stable as an R6. Just comparing with what I've ridden in the past. But yeah, I never really think the ZX6 was an advantage compared to the Yamaha or anything. It just depends on the riding style and what suits you.
So this week, as you probably know, Cameron Beaubier is going to be at the races. So, can you bring like an extra crew shirt for him or something? I'd like to see him like get down and dirty and get his hands dirty. And like, I'd like to see him change your wheels and some stuff like that. Can we make that happen? It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'll try my best. I'll give a little phone call into him and tell him, hey man, Jeff and Sky are out. You're in. Come start wrenching on these things. But honestly, that's a little scary. I've seen him work on his motocross bikes, and don't know how he freaking gets around a racetrack with how he works on those things.
Yeah, I don't know that I would. I don't know that I think that's a good thing if he was your crew chief, but it'll be nice to have him there and see him and stuff. I think he's had a good year, and I know it's been tough, but we're always pretty proud of his results because we kind of know what he's dealing with. So.
Yeah, for sure. And we're so excited for Cameron because no one really understands what he has what he has done moving everything overseas to Moto2. Because me personally, everyone knows Cameron as, oh my gosh, he's 5-time Superbike champ. He's so gnarly. I look at him as the dude that we go on bike rides with. We just do dumb little things and have a good time playing Xbox. And yeah, Cameron has completely changed his whole lifestyle, and the Moto2 so gnarly right now. And Cameron, I want to say, is probably one of the best rookies trying to work his way up through, because throughout the years you see other Moto3 rookies and people come up and they struggle for, I want to say, 2 or 3 years, and Cameron's jumping in it, and his race pace is absolutely phenomenal.
I want to talk about that a little bit, Cory, because you gave a great analysis of Richie Escalante on that Kawasaki. So obviously, you've, as a racer, you've got the technical knowledge, and Paul and I talk about this quite a bit. The fact that, it's unfortunate that, Cameron is way far in the back based on qualifying and practice times and stuff. But when he gets in the race, he does the, screen door and a submarine move and goes up through to the front. So give us some analysis on that. What is it about qualifying in Moto2 versus what does it show about Cameron to be able to pick off so many guys and go towards the front as fast as he can? Tell us what that means about his talent and his ability in Moto2.
Yeah, I just think it shows it's a better comparison for where Cameron really sits. Because obviously we see Cameron racing out here, and his race pace is absolutely amazing. And he can just figure things out on the fly. But I think the big thing is Cameron doesn't have enough track time. He's figuring the track out on day one, where people are getting there, setting their bikes up and moving forward. They already have a line, where Cameron has to kind of figure it out. Each track is so different in the GPs, and you only hit the each GP once. So I think that's why we saw Cameron do so good at Qatar, because he had a lot of testing and everything going to Qatar. And now he's just trying to learn, and different Moto2 riders are doing different things. Everyone is progressing forward, and it just all depends on what aligns, how, when. And Cameron's so awesome. He's just a different level, and he brought that over to Moto2, which is so cool. And yeah, and I think in qualifying a little bit, Cameron hasn't really, I think throughout his career, he hasn't been the best qualifier, but when it comes to race pace, he can just charge right on through that. And as soon as he gets qualifying figured out, dude, those Moto2 guys are going to be scared.
I love it. Hey, let's go back to talk about you for a minute. Uh, I don't want to make you feel like I doubted you at all, but Cory, you did surprise me at Laguna, and I think it's just because when we're following the series and we have the riders that we have, and we kind of know the players and the way things were going with SDK last year and with Richie and also Brandon Posh. I mean, he was right up there too. When you came in, and we know your capabilities, we know your talent. And I just have to say, it surprised me what you did, and we were pretty delighted about it, just because, like I say, you've been a favorite rider of ours, and you've been great in press conferences, and you've won a lot of races in the past with us. But obviously, even though you didn't race with Supersport a full season, and you haven't this year, what you're doing in AFM is keeping your skills advancing forward. So I'm sure that you have pretty high expectations coming into Laguna. Can you tell us about that? How your program works within AFM, and what your goals are in your eyes towards MotoAmerica? Obviously, you still want to you want to race with us as much as you can, but budgets are tough. Is that kind of the assessment?
Yeah, exactly. And I've been funding this whole program myself, and we've just been trying to get our best bang for our buck, really. And coming in last year, we had a good solid program at everything, the stars aligned, and it was really, really cool. I think we'll be able to pick up where we left off last year coming into this year. But AFM is a different type of thing. It's when you show up to a MotoAmerica race, it's serious. It's business, a lot of pressure. There's, when you walk into the paddock, you can feel how tense it is. Where AFM, it's, you see people drinking beers at 8 in the morning, and it's like, all right, well, that's kind of cool. But no, it's so much fun, and just being around there with the whole family and having the Beaubiers come back. Like you guys know, I'm really close with the Beaubier family, and they've done a lot for me. So just having them back there, and just us being us, we just have a great time. But yeah, we've been on the racetrack side of things. It's just constantly, we're trying different things. We're trying different baseline setups, adjusting, trying to get a more variety out of the ZX6, because the ZX6 window has been so small. And we didn't want to show up to MotoAmerica and spend all of my budget just all into one round. We were thinking about showing up in Atlanta, because I think I would have had a pretty good shot, but we backed it back down. We were like, you know what, we just got to stay the course, do what we got to do, and keep moving forward with what we have. Because out here on the West Coast, there aren't a whole lot of people that want to come in and go, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a full AFM, or not AFM, a full MotoAmerica season, and we're going to put you on the bike. That's not really a thing. Where on the East Coast, that's kind of the majority of the series. So, but there are little things that you see. And like with Wyatt Ferris, he's been sitting at home doing AFM for years and just trying to find the right time. And then boom, he's out at MotoAmerica for a full year this year, which is really, really cool. I can't wait to see him get going on that Suzuki. But yeah, coming into Laguna this year, we have the same thing that we had at Laguna last year. And that's not normal for my program. My program, it's normally my mom, my dad, Miguel, and sometimes Jeff is over in our pit at the AFM stuff. It's a very small crew. Luckily, last AFM round, we had Jesse come out, because he's normally very, very busy with working on other people's bikes, and he's got his normal job, and he's balancing a ton. So him coming into my program at Laguna just lifts everything up to a whole nother 2 levels.
That's a good point about Wyatt Ferris. And, we have the advantage, or the benefit of seeing him more this year. It's great to have him back with us, because he had been doing AFM and he wasn't around for a while. So he is kind of proof that you can get back in MotoAmerica and go full time again. So we're hoping for that with you for sure, Cory. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about a rider that you did the VR46 Academy with, and it's Jackson Blackman. You guys went over there and did that whole deal together. I don't know if you stay in touch with Jackson or not, but it's been interesting with him. He was injured at the beginning of the year, and I'm going to come out and say this, and Jackson, I mean no disrespect to you on this, but if you're going to listen to this podcast, but at VIR, it was funny when he was going through tech, you know, and it's his dad in his program, and the front of his bike, it's a Yamaha FC07 MT07, and he actually had masking tape on the front of the fairing to just put down that number 18 so he could get it through tech. So you know, they were kind of putting it together on a real shoestring budget, and look what the kid's done. I mean, he doubled at Ridge, and he's going really well in a very tough class. So I want to ask you, because you had some knowledge of being around Jackson, and Jackson's kind of coming into his own in Twins Cup. You know, have you ever considered, you know, some of the riders have gone from Junior Cup into Twins Cup and not made the huge leap. We've talked about this with you in the past, and you felt like you wanted that kind of big carrot in front of you. You wanted to race with the best in a really, you know, premier class, and give yourself a real kind of a tough measuring stick. Do you still feel like that's a good way for you to go? And would you even consider racing in Twins Cup like Jackson's done and had some success like he has?
Yeah, when we jumped up, the Twins Cup was kind of more, it was a less developed series, which was a little weird. And I was a little unsure of that class. And I was like, well, okay, I think the 600's more the route, and that's the way we were directed, just with Hayes and Cameron. Everyone wanted me to jump up onto a 600. But now that the Twins have become more developed, more bikes are entering the series. Like, I was able to ride the Aprilia RS 660 last, I want to say, November. That thing is pretty cool. It feels like those are going to be what kills the 600 class. It's going to slowly evolve into the Twins becoming the new 600 class. But yeah, Jackson's riding the thing so good. I'm super proud of Jackson, because over the last couple of years, I haven't seen that side of Jackson ever since we left Junior Cup. And I've talked to him all the time too. And I'm like, hey man, I know you can do this. I give him some confidence, and him and his dad run that program. And I think that's when they do best.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that about Supersport. You know, I've written a couple articles for the website, MotoAmerica website, and I've sort of talked about the demise of the 600 class, but it hasn't yet. And I mean, obviously, Yamaha's not making that R6 anymore as a street bike, but they do have some of them available. They did in Japan, they had like a race version only, and you can still get them as long as you go through Yamaha and are a professional racer. You know, Kawasaki's doing great. It's funny how you describe the ZX6R with the frame, and I think it's because a lot of people say that thing was really devised as being a street bike more than a race bike, and you guys have kind of turned it into a race bike, and it's very stout, but it's got some things that are maybe it doesn't do as well as an R6. So I get where you're coming from on that, but it's interesting, Cory, because in your lifetime as you're racing, you know, we don't know. I mean, we may see the complete demise of the 600 class, and with this new R7 coming out, I would think that maybe some of the other manufacturers are going to look at this as a way to have a middleweight sport bike that's maybe a little bit more simple, but maybe not that simple because of the electronics that are involved in it. So maybe that is the next class. And, you know, I don't know if they'll call Twins Cup Supersport at some point, but it seems like it's going to be maybe one or the other. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I do. I think that will become the next step. And instead of jumping up onto a 600, it'll be on that twin type deal. And then you will jump from the twin to stock 1000 and then into superbike, instead of the older style jumping from the 300 up to the 600. It will kind of slow down the process a little bit. Yeah, I do think that's the way it's going to go, because those are the bikes that are selling. And it seems like that's even how the racing teams are going. That seems like everyone's putting their money into twins. And it costs so much money to run a 600 program, and twins, it's probably going to also get up there in some different ways, but in a tire budget sense, it seems like it is the better option to go.
Okay, so Cory, obviously with your results last year at Laguna, you left happy. And like Sean said, he was surprised. I was surprised. I think a lot of people in the paddock were surprised that you could run at the front after not being at our races all year. going into this year, you probably have higher expectations than you did last year. And also, do you see it as, I don't know that it even exists anymore, because the times aren't what they used to be. But before, in the past, a kid like yourself shows up at Laguna Seca and does really well and gets on the podium, and maybe he gets a phone call from a team, that shows some interest. Ultimately, that's probably got to be your goal, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we're trying our absolute best to get on a team. That was our whole goal last year, and we were even in contact with a couple different teams, and we were trying hard. But what it comes down to is I didn't have the budget to be able to buy a ride into a team. So we decided to take our program back and just keep on developing that and come back strong again to wow the crowd again, because it's one thing to do it once, but if you can do it twice, it's a different story.
Yeah, and it's got to help that you're so young.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I thought you were 30. I was surprised when Sean said how young you were.
Yeah, 19 as of February 28th, right? Hence the number 28, Cory. Is that right?
Correct.
All right, man. Not that I'm stalking you or anything, but I like to pay attention to you. You're a good guy. Hey, so we made this announcement. We're going to see you at Laguna Seca. So I think we're pretty much ready to wrap up. We'll see you down there, Cory. And I want to say to the fans, well, let me say it in Shakespearean terms. I used to do a lot of Shakespeare when I was in college, and I loved Hamlet. And when he says, "Get thee to a nunnery," I'm going to say, "Get thee to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca," because you get to see win or put it on the podium, but certainly do a good showing at one of his favorite tracks. And we've got so much stuff going on coming up there. I mean, there's obviously the King of the Baggers is going to wrap up there with their 3-race series. It's going to be the final race. And also it was just announced essentially yesterday that Roland Sands is having this thing they call the Quattro. It's a super hooligans race where it's almost like, I don't know, Paul, would you say it made me think a little bit like it's almost like the old flat track Grand Slam. I mean, you're kind of, or even super bikers a little bit.
I think that's what it's designed for. It's supposed to be, bring back days of the Grand National Championship where guys race dirt track, flat track, TT, and basically, way back it was basically the same bike. Like Mert Lawwell would flat track a bike and make some changes to it and go road race on it. So I think it kind of takes us back to that, which will be pretty cool because, yeah, it's one of those things. You've got to kind of figure out how to make one bike work in like 3 different areas.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's a great idea. And I mean, to see it start off with road racing down through the corkscrew at Laguna Seca, and then they're going to be going to some other venues for, dirt track and some other things. So, but it's going to kick off there. It kind of got put together recently, and it's a big deal. So that's there, as well as, of course, our Pono Superbike riders, and to see, those big bikes and see what they can do going down through there with some of the riders like Loris Baz and Hector Barbara, who have raced there in the past in MotoGP. So we'll have to see, I mean, what kind of advantages they might have or can bring to the table to maybe give something to Jake Gagne. Laguna Seca is an unusual track. A lot of guys love it, but it's an equalizer for a lot of people too. So I think we've got some good racing coming up. And I think that's my big spiel for the end of this podcast is everybody get yourself to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, July 9th through 11th. Have a good 4th of July weekend, but get ready for a big party the week after that. And want to say good luck to you, Cory. We'll see you down there. And thanks for being on the podcast with us this week with Paul and I.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Laguna's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. It's actually one of those events. I think it's going to be a little hectic for those of us working in it. It might be more fun. It might be more fun to be a spectator, but it's definitely going to be a good show. There's going to be so much stuff going on. It's going to make your head spin. So I think everyone will enjoy the show, and I want you two to both have a safe and happy 4th of July, and we'll see you both next week out in Monterey.
Sounds good.